The war-torn city lay beneath a sky stained by smoke, the ruins of concrete towers and shattered glass marking where once life had thrived. Heat waves rippled off the asphalt, and the smell of dust and burned fuel clung to the air like an invisible fog. In the middle of this battlefield, a small Navy SEAL team moved cautiously, their boots crunching softly against broken debris as they advanced toward their objective. The mission was secret, the kind whispered in coded orders and briefed behind locked doors, and every man in the squad knew failure was not an option. Their task was to recover the remains of a downed satellite core before it fell into enemy hands. If captured, its intelligence would shift the balance of power in the region. Among the squad was a woman, Lieutenant Kara Hultgreen, her presence both unexpected and unquestioned by those who served alongside her. She was the first female Navy combat pilot in history, now serving in a role that demanded not only skill, but courage bordering on recklessness. Her reputation preceded her, trained under figures like Colonel John Glenn, whose legendary space missions inspired unshakable calm under pressure, and Colonel Eileen Collins, whose meticulous precision had set standards few could match. Kara carried herself with that same steady control, a quiet defiance that made even the most hardened operators respect her without words. She didn't boast, didn't need to. Her very silence spoke louder than any declaration. The team leader, a grizzled veteran who once trained under Colonel Billy Mitchell's lineage of strategic thinking, signaled them forward. Their path took them through tight alleyways where shadows moved unpredictably, every corner a potential kill zone. The city wasn't just abandoned. It was alive with unseen eyes and rifles aimed from hidden perches. The SEALs moved as one, each step deliberate, every angle covered. Kara scanned her sector, her M4 rifle ready, her heartbeat steady even as the adrenaline pressed against her ribs. She had been in worse situations before, and yet something in the stillness gnawed at her instincts. Then came the sound, a thunderous crack that didn't belong to small arms fire. The bullet slammed into a wall barely 2 feet from the point man, scattering stone chips across his face. Everyone froze. It wasn't just the power of the shot. It was the unmistakable sound of a Barrett .50 caliber sniper rifle. That weapon wasn't a rifle, it was an executioner, capable of piercing armored vehicles, tearing through walls, and killing from over a mile away. It changed the balance of every firefight it entered. A SEAL muttered under his breath, the words hanging heavier than the smoke above. Where did they get that Barrett .50 cal? The question was less about logistics and more about dread. If the enemy had acquired such a weapon, the mission just shifted from dangerous to near suicidal. The Barrett's reach meant that no cover was truly safe, no wall thick enough, no distance far enough. They were being hunted by someone skilled, someone patient, someone who could stop their entire advance with a single round. Kara glanced at the men, noting the flicker of fear in their eyes, even among warriors trained to suppress it. She wasn't immune either, fear was natural, but she had long ago learned to master it, to shape it into sharp focus. She adjusted her gear, checked the sight on her rifle, and whispered into the comms, her voice calm and steady. Stay low. Keep moving. I'll find him. Her words didn't just fill the silence, they anchored it. The team leaned on that calm, on her refusal to bend before the sound of death roaring through the streets. Somewhere in the ruins, a sniper with a Barrett had his crosshairs ready, waiting for them to slip. The SEALs pressed tighter to the walls, breath shallow, eyes wide, the weight of the unseen enemy pressing against them like an invisible hand. The stage was set, the battlefield chosen. Courage would be tested, and lives would hang on split-second decisions. The mission was no longer just about retrieving a satellite core. It had become a duel in the shadows between one unseen killer with a weapon of thunder and one woman who refused to let fear decide the outcome. The first minutes of silence after the Barrett's opening shot stretched like hours, each man and woman in the squad knowing that the unseen sniper was somewhere ahead, watching, waiting for one mistake. The SEAL team pressed against the walls of a shattered street, trying to anticipate the next crack of thunder. Then it came. Another shot, this time ripping through the hood of their armored support vehicle, disabling it instantly. Sparks and flames leapt skyward, and the squad leader barked orders to fall back into cover. The mission was already compromised, and every second they lingered in the open was borrowed time. Lieutenant Kara Hultgreen's pulse quickened, but her breathing stayed controlled. She knew the Barrett was no ordinary threat. Its wielder was trained, disciplined, too precise to waste ammunition. Each shot wasn't random. It was a message, a psychological trap to break their focus and force mistakes. She glanced at the youngest SEAL, his face pale, his rifle trembling slightly. Fear was creeping in, and in the battlefield, fear could kill faster than any bullet. She leaned close, whispering just enough for him to hear, reminding him that bravery wasn't the absence of fear, but the act of standing tall despite it. Another crack split the air, and this time one of the SEALs went down, struck in the shoulder. Blood soaked his gear as he slumped against the rubble. The squad scrambled to drag him back, but every move drew another near miss from the sniper. The Barrett's reach felt endless, each shot whistling death. The team was pinned, and whispers of retreat swirled through the comms. For a moment, even the leader hesitated. The mission hung on the edge of collapse. Kara tightened her grip on her rifle, her mind echoing with the names of those who had come before her. Colonel Charles Young, who fought against prejudice to command troops with honor. Lieutenant Audie Murphy, who stood alone against overwhelming fire. And Lieutenant Edward Butch O'Hare, who saved his comrades with impossible courage in the skies. Their spirits seemed to stand with her now, reminding her that hesitation was defeat. She crawled forward, ignoring the shouts to hold position. The sniper struck again, the bullet grazing so close it shattered part of the wall above her head. Dust fell into her eyes, but she didn't stop. She slid into a better angle, scanning through her scope, waiting for the faintest flicker of movement in the distant ruins. Her team watched, breathless, caught between terror and awe. Then the enemy changed tactics. The sniper wasn't alone. From the side alleys came bursts of small arms fire, insurgents advancing under the cover of the Barrett's booming shots. It was a coordinated trap meant to draw the SEALs out of cover and into the open where the 50 cal could finish them. Gunfire erupted, the squad returning fire in desperate bursts. Grenades shook the ground, smoke billowed, and in the chaos, another comrade fell, struck down before anyone could reach him. The squad's anger burned hot. But it was Kara who steadied them, calling targets, keeping their fire disciplined even as her own heart ached at the sight of a fallen brother. The situation spiraled darker with every minute. Ammunition ran low, their wounded groaned in pain, and the Barrett thundered again and again, each shot pushing them further toward despair. Yet Kara's resolve only sharpened. She thought of Colonel Meryl Tengesdahl, the first black woman to pilot the U-2, flying above the world with unshakable composure. She thought of Lieutenant John F. Kennedy's stand after his boat was destroyed, refusing to abandon his crew. She thought of Lieutenant Susan Ann Cuddy, who broke barriers and led in silence where words were not enough. Those names were her anchors as she crawled closer to the front, her eyes locked on the rooftop ahead. The sniper had to be there, and if she didn't face him, no one else could. The squad shouted after her, but she moved anyway, hugging broken stone and pushing past her fear. Another bullet cracked, grazing her helmet this time. The SEAL who had frozen earlier gasped, certain she was gone. But when the dust cleared, Kara was still crawling forward, eyes fixed, determination unbroken. The battlefield had become a storm of chaos. Gunfire, thunderous sniper rounds, cries of pain, the smell of smoke and blood mingling into one suffocating wave. Yet in that storm, Kara was steady, each inch forward pulling her closer to the duel she knew was coming. The Barrett roared again, but this time she was ready. Through her scope, just for a fraction of a second, she saw him, the shadow, the glint of metal, the silhouette of the man who had pinned them all down. Her finger tightened on the trigger. The entire mission, the lives of her comrades, and the weight of legacy balanced on that single moment. The battle had taken its toll, but she had found the mark, and now it was her turn to strike back. The trigger pull was as steady as her breath, the sound of her shot ringing out in defiance against the thunder of the Barrett. For a fraction of a second, the battlefield seemed to freeze. Then came the silence. No more booming 50 caliber, no more shattering walls. From the rooftop ahead, the enemy sniper's rifle slipped from his grasp and crashed into the rubble below. The ghost that had haunted them with each shot was gone. Kara had ended it with a single round. The SEAL team erupted into motion, their suppressed fear flooding out as renewed energy. They advanced, clearing the side alleys of the insurgents who had been emboldened by the sniper's cover fire. Without that protective thunder, the enemy fighters faltered, their line collapsing. It wasn't easy. The squad had taken losses, and each man fought with the sharp ache of vengeance in his heart. But slowly, methodically, they pushed the enemy back and secured the area around the fallen satellite core. The wounded were pulled to safety, their comrades dragging them with the kind of loyalty only born from shared blood and fire. The two who had fallen remained behind, wrapped in the dust of the city that had claimed them, their sacrifice stitched forever into the memory of those who survived. Kara felt that weight heavy on her chest, but she kept moving, guiding the squad forward until the last resistance broke. When the battlefield finally quieted, the squad gathered in the ruins, their mission complete, but their hearts far from victorious. The man who had frozen under the Barrett's first mark approached Kara, his face pale, eyes still wide with the memory of fear. He looked at her as if seeing something beyond human, a force that stood unflinching when the rest faltered. He asked again, voice low and almost reverent, "Where did you get that Barrett out 50 cal?" But she only shook her head. It hadn't been the weapon that won the fight. It had been resolve, born of legacy and carved from the sacrifices of those who came before. The extraction was quiet. The helicopters lifted them away from the city's bones, carrying both the living and the lost. Back at base, silence filled the debriefing room as commanders listened to the account. They spoke Kara's name with the weight reserved for legends. Comparing her calm to Colonel John Glenn's composure in space, her determination to Colonel Anna Mae Hayes' trailblazing strength, her courage to Lieutenant Audie Murphy's stand against impossible odds. Yet Kara herself remained quiet, eyes fixed on the floor, knowing that her true mettle was not recognition, but the lives of those she had saved. News of the mission spread quietly among the ranks. In the mess halls, in the barracks, and on the lips of young recruits, the story was retold. The day a woman stared down a Barrett sniper and never blinked. For the families of the fallen, it was a story of sorrow laced with pride. Their sons would never return. But their sacrifice was woven into something larger, something that kept the mission alive and the squad intact. As weeks passed, the SEAL who had once frozen at the sniper's mark began training harder, sharper, driven by the memory of Kara's unshaken resolve. Her example reshaped him, just as it reshaped the entire unit. They carried themselves differently, aware that fear could strike anyone, but courage could rise in its place if someone chose to stand. Kara returned to her duties without fanfare. She cleaned her rifle, adjusted her gear, and prepared for the next mission. To her, the battle wasn't about glory, it was about responsibility. Yet in the quiet moments, she thought of the names she had whispered on the battlefield: Colonel Eileen Collins, Colonel Oveda Culp Hobby, Lieutenant Susan Ann Cuddy, and wondered if perhaps her own name might one day join theirs in the quiet annals of history. For those who were there, one memory remained carved into their hearts. When death looked them in the eye, it was Kara who pulled the trigger, steady and unshaken. Her legacy wasn't a rifle or a medal. It was the unspoken truth that when the world froze, she moved, and long after the dust settled, her story lingered as a reminder whispered through the ranks. She didn't just kill a sniper. She carried us all.